woman, and I certainly encourage this to be here. So what are the pros and the cons?
Well, and there's also a concern that in domestic violence cases, if the couple aren't married, and there's now a constitutional law that says that the government can't treat that as any kind of a official relationship, that perhaps some of the domestic violence prosecution process could be impacted.
Well, if you and me, not married, are at my house and I beat you over the head with a tea kettle, it's still violence, and the law enforcement officer is going to arrest me for abusing you. You don't have to be my spouse, Deborah.
So,
as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to tug and pull a little bit on some of these. But
well, okay, pros. Supporters say the amendment would protect children by ensuring that only one form of marriage between a man and a woman would ever be celebrated in Florida and would ever be recognized in Florida, I think is the key there.
Right.
And the Florida statute that already provides for a single form of marriage could be overturned by a court. This is the fear on constitutional grounds.
Right. And that's why it's important to have it as a constitutional amendment that the whole state votes for. Then it is an amendment to the Constitution, and that it'll be in law.
Cons. A statute or a law already provides for a single form of marriage in Florida, so this is actually already law. Healthcare and pension benefit plans that cover unmarried couples that are now legally valid may be adversely affected, and it could also make it harder to pursue domestic violence processes, which we just went over. And finally, Article 1 of the Florida Constitution, known as the Declaration of Rights, establishes rights, but this amendment would appear to instead limit a right, the right to marry.
Right. Well, so there you go. I've spoke my piece.
So you think it's a good thing? Others perhaps think it's an intrusion into people's personal lives.
I think it's an intrusion from other people to tell me that a man and a woman does not make for a marriage. So
we should probably move on. Let's go to
number 3.
This one's not so emotional.
Changes and improvements not affecting the assessed value of residential real property. The summary is, authorizes the legislature by general law to prohibit consideration of changes or improvements to residential real property which increase resistance to wind damage and installation of renewable energy source devices as factors in assessing the property's value for ad valorem taxation purposes. Effective upon adoption, repeals the existing renewable energy source device exemption no longer in effect. And I'm still trying to get my arms around this one, but I kind of like it. If you have an existing house and you make improvements to it that are related to storm resistance,
right,
stronger windows, stronger doors, better roof, whatever, that is justifiably makes it more storm resistant, or if you put renewable sources of energy at your house, what this amendment says is that the property appraiser can't increase your property value because you have made improvements to help yourself.
Correct.
In the lines of hurricane damage or producing your own power.
Right. And it only applies to existing homes.
Existing homes. So I think, and I'll have to, my hat's off to this one. We all know that alternative energy sources are coming. Somebody's thinking kind of in the future. There's going to be a lot of existing houses. We certainly have, people have increased hardening of their houses because of hurricanes. And we all know that there's going to be a lot more renewable energy that people are starting to take an interest in, solar panels, wind generators, all this kind of stuff. I think this is a good move. You, the citizen, are making an investment to take care of yourself, i.e. your stronger house, also to take care of yourself, to support your own energy needs. You shouldn't be punitively punished by the tax collector. So
let's read the pros and cons.
Okay.
Pros: hurricane safety may be improved in residential property. Residential property values may be increased, and the amendment may relieve the burden on non-renewable energy sources like oil.
Right.
Cons: local revenues could suffer.
Well,
that little increment that your house would have gone.
Yeah, it may be a little bit. typically when you see a swing in your property values, when you add that garage and you add that new building or that sunroom, that's where the tax man's going to get you. I don't know how often they, hurt you a ton, but it is possible.
Next, con individuals' tax savings could be minimal.
Right.
And finally, the amendment does not apply to new construction.
Well, and hopefully, I think the building industry certainly cleaning up some of their act on hurricane resistance.
Yes.
I see a lot of promise in this one. It's kind of an effort to, hey, if you'll get out there and take care of yourself, we're going to give you a little break. And it may only save you, the citizen, a little bit, but at least you won't penalize. You've already had an expenditure. Why should we penalize you more? So
Correct.
that one,
That was number 3.
Kind of like that one.
So we're going to move on to amendment number 4 that's going to appear on the ballot this November. And I'll read the title. Property tax exemption of perpetually preserved land. And, there's 2 parts, classification and assessment of land used for conservation. This is a 2-part
Right.
amendment. The first part requires the legislature to provide an extra property tax exemption for somebody who says, I'm just going to sign my land or part of my land over to perpetual, so forever, conservation easement.
Right. And we are saying forever there.
The first part is forever.
First part, right.
The first part is forever. The second part requires the state to come up with a new classification to be applied to somebody's land who says, I'm going to set part of my land or all of my land aside right now
Right.
for conservation, but maybe 10 years down the road, they're allowed to change that, and they, in the meantime, still wouldn't have had to pay the taxes.
Well, I certainly have concerns on the second one. Now, on the first one, absolutely. I kind of wish they would have broke this into 2 parts, and I'm going to be torn on this one a little bit.
Here's the concern with the first one, though. Let me just mention this. This would allow somebody who, say, has a lake house on a fairly decent sized parcel of land. The concern is this would allow them to take part of it, and the part the house is not on, and say, okay, this part is forever in conservation.
Right.
I mean, they wouldn't have done anything with it anyway because it's their yard, but they're going to say, well, now it's in permanent conservation, and that reduces their property tax bill.
Right.
Some people might like that.
Well, and I would. I think the first part of this is going to encourage people to put land into conservation, and I like the fact that it's forever.
Well, and let's keep in mind that they may or may not be able to do that, subject to how the legislature writes up the final law.
Right.
This is just a concern that may happen. It may not happen depending on
Right.
how they write the law.
Yeah, I think
It leaves the door open, though.
there's some of this one that's okay. I'm a little. The other part of it is it wouldn't be fair if something is in conservation today or agriculture.
Now, this
for
is
example.
the second part of Amendment 4.
Yeah, we're talking about the second part. If something is in agriculture for today, or
Right.
basically you could call that conservation.
Well,
if
this would be a whole new classification.
Right.
That's the point. But yes.
The jumping in and jumping out is where I have a problem
Right.
with, because I could say that the real estate market is down,
Right.
and I'm going to put my 500 acres back into conservation and pay
Right.
no taxes on it
Correct.
for the next 15
Until
years.
somebody decides to buy it.
And then when I have a buyer, then I'll take it out of conservation
Right.
and sell it.
And you haven't paid taxes.
Right.
the
So
meantime.
this one, I'm that's going to be tough for me to vote for, even though I do encourage people to conserve all the woodlands that they can.
And again, how that breaks down is going to be up to the legislature as well.
Right. All right. Amendment number 6. Assessment of working waterfront property based upon current use.